Welcome to the Apple Hunter, the bonus episode of Krate. We are going to interview 3 fantastic creators who have made the app Krate. And I'm going to start with a couple of questions here. Who are you? What role do you play working on Krate? And then what do you want to be known most for? Ian, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ian. I'm a co-founder. I'm pretty active with emailing and tech support and stuff like that. And then one of the main things I do is just discuss new ideas, make decisions about new ideas and stuff like that. As far as what I'd like to be most known for, I'd say just, the story of Krate and how some friends came together and made this app to talk about music and discover new music.
All right, Steven, you want to go next?
Yeah, my name's Steven. I'm a lead engineer on Krate. Kind of, head up a lot of the architecture and the app itself. And what I want to be known for most is just creating products and startups that positively impact, people's lives and stuff people like me and you can use on a daily basis.
Sean, what do you got, man?
I'm Sean. I'm a technical co-founder. I essentially built the first version of the app in my parents' back house, and then luckily found Steven and another developer keen to make it real, functional, I guess. And then what I want to be known for, I'd like to be known as a reliable team member. I think that is sometimes people don't come through, and that's the worst part about working with someone like that on a team. And I just want to be reliable and someone that people can rely on.
Nice. Well, I see some really big speakers and amplifiers in the background of Steven's. So I want to talk about that. So you clearly have a passion for music, and Krate is a very I would say opinionated app around music. We have some more in the background from Sean. Why are you so passionate about music and having people, express their love of music?
And I think for me, anyways, music's something that's always been a part of my life and a way of like finding different means of expression and feeling. And I don't know, that's just something that's kind of like manifested itself throughout, my childhood. I could put certain events to certain songs, that sort of thing. Diving deep into picking up my first guitar and learning how to play my first song are just things that kind of carried with me throughout my life, and I've kind of evolved on over time. And just in general, just music has always been like a huge part of my life. Led me in different directions. Like I don't know if I would really be an engineer without music, because
why is that?
From the get-go, I got really involved in different underground music scenes and that sort of stuff. And I started out creating like show flyers and stuff like that over time, just creating stuff. And like music scenes kind of show me kind of that I can, if I put my mind to something, I can make it happen, and other people can get involved and see that sort of thing. And carrying that philosophy into engineering and stuff, just knowing that I can create a product from scratch, kind of just establishing that whole DIY culture with the music scene, and then evolving that into creating startups.
There's a significant crossover between that DIY culture of making music and zines and sort of the way in which that grew up, but also in software creation, right? Indie developer has taken on the mantle, I feel like, that like independent musician did, 20, 30 years ago. Absolutely. Sean or Ian, you have thoughts?
Yeah, like everyone I know to this day somehow is related. I met through music. Like either reminiscing about albums, reminiscing about songs, going to concerts together, being in marching band, being in jazz band. Like when I was a kid, listening to the Aquabats, like essentially like my first foray into like weird music, like things outside of like the mainstream, my first CDs, etc. So it's just such a cool art form. It has so much like involved to it. There's like the lore of the rockers, like, the rock icons and stuff like that. And then also the people who didn't really make it, and the people who failed, and the people who were kind of canceled, or it's so complex and so fun. But what I wanted to kind of talk about additionally was like, yeah, the DIY aspect. Like, you can do it. Anyone can do it. And that's what's cool about music. And essentially, and it translates into like everything else that you do with your time. Like, hey, I need a table. Maybe I can make it. Like, hey, what portfolio online for work? Maybe I can make it. Like, and write the song. Maybe I can make it. And it kind of created the, since this is an app podcast, like it inspired us and gave us the, ability to be like, let's try it. It might not be perfect. It might not, but it will be rocking, and it will be like something we could be proud of.
I like that. I like that a lot. Ian, thoughts?
Yeah, I've had similar experiences where I know so many people through music and through I guess what I would call like an underground community of punk bands and metal bands and hardcore bands, and going to those shows and just meeting so many people. And then, like, even when I was younger, it was just like I had a couple friends who liked playing music, and we all played music together, and it was like something to do because especially like, I don't know, like, you're a kid, you don't necessarily, I don't know, you don't necessarily know what to do, and you're bored and stuff, and it's like this is like a way to connect with your friends and like be productive and do something. And then as I got older, I started taking it more seriously. I think with like learning how to play guitar, it was something that, like, honestly, I have a memory of like wanting to give up playing guitar really early on. I'd taken lessons for maybe like 6 weeks, and like, and like wanting to give up, but sticking with it. And I remember that and apply it to other things, whether it's my job or, Krate or something else, just like sticking with something, even though when you want to give up.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value in learning those things early on in one area of your life, and then seeing how they sort of bear fruit in a totally different area. Well, let's talk about the beginning of Krate. What did you learn in the process of creating, what the prototype or 1.0, from that part of the process?
So Ian came up with the idea. He texted me, and Ian, do you want to share why you texted me?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was using these other apps for like movies and books. I watch movies, and I try to read, and there are some apps out there to rate and review what you're watching or reading. And you can also discover, and there's social apps too, so you can see what your friends are watching or reading, and you'd be like, I don't know what this movie is, I don't know what this book is, and you add it to your list of stuff that you want to check out later. And I was like, why isn't there something for music like this? And I looked into it, and there were kind of some like websites, but they were either, there wasn't an app really that kind of did what I wanted it to do. And I texted Sean, because in our friend group, we had talked about, like, for some reason, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was kind of like a recurring thing where people would be like, oh, I have an app idea, And then, so that was kind of what I had in mind. And I was like, oh, Sean, I have an app idea.
We wanted to remake the Oregon Trail at one point and make it like turn-based, but during the day. Anyways, I digress.
So there have been lots of app ideas that you've thrown around and had. So what made Krate stick then?
Before I met Steven, we didn't have many very like technical friends. But I had just quit my job in July last year. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, or like career-wise, whatever you want to call it. I just quit my job, and Ian texted me that, and I was like, okay, well, this is something cool for me to try to do. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos. I learned React Native, which is what the software is built off of, and I just like tried to build something, and took 3 months of just kind of trial and error using the Spotify API, and just testing it through Expo. I made Ian and some other friends, our other co-founders, like download the app, Expo app, and like dev versions, and just created kind of this like really funky infrastructure from someone with no experience to like try to make an app.
Right.
And that's what we ended up releasing. To a lot more attention than we originally expected. We thought it was going to stay just like within the core group. It blew up to an extent, right? Like, I'm not going to say, we're the biggest thing that's like the biggest hype thing in the whole world, but
right,
it
sure.
was exciting. We're all texting each other. Oh my God, like, I can't believe I was watching numbers, et cetera, et cetera. But then we quickly found out like what I built was not scalable at all. So the more people got on it, the more, bugs manifested itself, etc. And, luckily through the music community, the hardcore punk community, we found Steven, Keaton, and Evan. So we brought them on as like people to help technically. And what you see today is 3 months after the initial release of what we're doing. And that's our team now currently.
Nice. So, Steven, did you have to burn everything down and then build it back up? Or were you able to actually take some of the stuff that John...
He scolded me a few times. You can't do that.
I think the way I kind of... The first time I saw Krate, again, it blew up. Like, I think in early December or late November, it kind of blew up of 2020. And, I saw this app and I was just like, wow, this is really cool. Like, this is kind of, breaking down what I want from a music app, something I can share my opinions on and discover new music through. And like that was really inspiring to me. I think one of my buddies messaged me about this app and said he wrote a review and Sean got back to him. So that's kind of how I got involved in this. So I was super interested in wanted to dive right into helping out, solve some of these challenges that Sean was experiencing with the application. And the first version of the app was React Native, connected straight to a database they call Firebase, Google Firebase. There's no true backend to this application, and he's doing all the logic and stuff in the front end. And we kind of dissected that. We got a great engineer. His name's Keaton, who wrote all the services and APIs in the backend layer for that. So we had this huge breakdown of the application and break down all the services and that sort of stuff to go into it. And yet we had a huge few months of just hardcore like refactoring time period in the application. And then we released that version, and I don't think we fixed a lot of the bugs that people were seeing. Thank you everybody for all the feedback and everything that has been given. That's made the app so much smoother, and we've introduced a lot of new features that customers have been asking for. So we had a kind of start almost from scratch and rebuild the app back up.
And I'm really proud of how what it is today. I think it's improved 100-fold, and to add new features, to fix bugs, I'm not banging my head against the wall anymore. It's like, oh, this is manageable because it's written in this kind of structured and organized manner. Whereas when I wrote it myself, it was just like a stew of like nonsense. Yeah,
right, bits and pieces that you're taking and trying to put together. Well, let's talk about those early days of early users. How do you feel like people wanted to use that app? What did you find like when people started, playing around with it, reviewing music, sharing it, those kinds of things? What did you find that people were doing most often that either surprised you or that you found really compelling?
I thought it was funny that everyone on the app is essentially all the people across the United States that you see when you're on tour. Like no one else, like outside of that initially. Which was funny. It's like, oh, all the music nerds. It's like all the hardcore punk music nerds are just on this app. Of course they would love it. But one interesting thing is like people don't take the reviews very seriously. I love it. I think it's like you're not this music editor, like music review editor. It's like you can talk. You don't even have to talk about the music. You can talk about like sitting in the car and listening to this with your friend. It doesn't have to be anything about the album or the artist or anything like that. It can just be completely arbitrary. You can even just write a story there, like a short story about something else that maybe this album inspired you to do. And that freedom and that lack of like professionalism is what I like about music. Because like I don't care what Pitchfork says about anything, like or Spin.
Yeah, I think that's one of the valuable things about Krate is kind of giving that power back to, just the average music listener or, the music geek, and kind of giving them that platform to kind of just voice however they feel about the music. It's not like you said in your review, it's not like you're not following this artist and they're not like you're not interested in their lives with this app. It's all about just posting and writing stories about what you feel fits for your opinion on this album or whatever it may be. And I think that's something that we kind of bring to the table that we don't see in too many other applications.
Yeah, I think that what surprised me at first was the way in which I feel like, no one really goes through like every album they've ever heard, just blasting through it and giving like scores out of 5. You make a post, you know what I mean? And I was kind of like, I wasn't really thinking of that at first, and I kind of like how that happens, But nonetheless, like Sean and Steven said, you don't have to, be like a music critic. It can be casual and informal, and you could be like, hey, I listened to this in the car with Sean today, and that's just my review. You can get into it more. I mean, I find personally that I was like, oh, I actually don't really know always what I want to say about a record. And sometimes I've put in a little extra effort to, think like, well, what would I say, and hopefully over time, like, I personally might get a little more confident writing about music, but also, you don't have to use the app that way.
Yeah, I think the way that the app organizes things is really compelling. So when you're looking at a particular album, I just pulled up a Descendants album, and you're looking at all of the different ways in which people have looked at that album through the lens of their lives, and it is totally different than the way, let's say, Amazon reviews work, right? You see, this is all of the reviews, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, versus it's a stream of reviews that feels very organic, right? I'm not looking at an average score of I don't want to grow up, right? Like I'm looking at each individual person. Someone says immature and perfect. The next person talks about the Sopranos episode where, and I don't know who wrote that, right? But like the idea of how people have conversations about music, right? That's where you're really looking at sort of finding the value. It isn't in saying what's the most popular, what is, the easiest way to understand an album is to know how often it is played on Spotify or something like that, right? You're looking at it from a different angle. I'd love to talk or hear your thinking about like the intentionality behind doing reviews that way, and why is it that you've really focused on the personality of the music almost, or the personality of the people? What is it that is valuable to you about that?
So when you go to a record store, my favorite things to read are like, it's shrink wrapped and then they stick like the record store's label on it, and then some nerd in the front like wrote something about it. Like those are always the best records at a record store. And Krate is kind of a way to manifest that in a digital space, put your opinion on something and flip through stuff, and maybe it's cool, maybe it's not. Something's gonna, jump out at you, and then you could read a little about it. And since music's so vast, like you can't really tell someone how to think about it, but you always have something to say about it. Every single individual has something to say about it, but to quantify that's really difficult. And like, I think we never tried to do that in this app. So here's a box. You get, I forgot how many characters, but like 500 characters, say whatever you want. And here's a few stars. You can do whatever you want with those too. I noticed someone would just put reviews with no stars. Like he wouldn't rate, like the individual like decided not to rate anything. It was just always 0 stars, but had something to say. Like, I guess the record store concept was, something that was kind of intentional when we were going through this. Like, hey, how do we represent that feeling and of like finding random music, not just what Spotify recommends to you? Because like, if I listen to like the New York Dolls, like I don't need you to recommend me like Johnny Thunders. Like I know, like we know that, like, but put something like interesting, something different, outside of the, algorithm.
Yeah, there's a very different kind of serendipity that you're talking about versus the algorithmic serendipity, right? So this is related to this, is related to this. Like the original Pandora, the music genome, that's what they were calling it, right? Like every kind of music is connected to every other kind of music. And if you like this music, then you will also like this, or you have a high likelihood of that happening. And that's how they, got started. But what you're thinking is more the serendipity of literally going through a crate of records, right? Where someone may have intentionally put those records together or may absolutely not have, right? Going from, one record to the next doesn't have to be this process of connecting the two. Rather, this is a moment in time. I'm looking at this record, understanding it, and then moving forward with another idea. Ian, Stephen, do you have thoughts around the intentionality within the app?
Yeah, I mean, I like the record store analogy. People I knew in the punk community who, when people were on Facebook, which, it's not something I use anymore really, but like, they put like a link to a song or something like that, but that wasn't like the focus of Facebook. You know what I mean? It'd just be like this one thing where like, oh man, this person who I know knows about cool music posted something that I've never heard, and I think that that's one of the intentions, is to have something like that here, but it is actually the focus. So I know there are people that I'm friends with that I follow that just know so much about music, and I'm always excited to see what they post and check it out, because half the time I haven't heard it. And I try and challenge myself to listen to something new, almost every day.
I love that mentality. Absolutely. Stephen?
Yeah, for me, kind of expanding on some of those things that Ian and Sean just said is, and kind of that whole genome project from Pandora. I feel like, a lot of those algorithms and the way Spotify recommends you things is unorganic. You can't write an algorithm to recommend what somebody is going to like, maybe around that realm or whatever. But I feel like algorithms take the personality out of recommendations. And it's really hard to write something that quantifies, something as infinite as music and genres and that sort of stuff. So I think Krate does a good job of putting that personality back into recommendations by, following your friends that you like and people that have similar interests in music as you. And I think that's something that Krate brings to the table.
Nice. I like that a lot. So let's talk a little bit about where Krate's headed. You have had a successful launch. People are at least aware of Krate. You've got this core group of music nerds that are excited to talk about music or whatever within the comments on these albums. What do you think is next? What kinds of other experiences do you want to lean into to sort of further foster this love of music and talking about music?
Obviously we want to grow our user base. The bigger it is, the more interesting the music is, naturally. So ways to do that, we're working on some features to increase user engagement, interactivity. That's something we feel that the app itself in its current state could improve on. Like some ideas we've had thrown around is, instead of posting a record or an album, you can send it to an individual. It's like gifting a record to someone, right? Rather than like hanging it on your wall. We all do this part-time. We're not funded in any ways, so the features roll out at our time frame and our pace, which is something that is nice. But also in other ways, it's like, it'd be cool if we could all work on this full time so we could do all these features in a month, right? But so that's one thing. We've been toying around with some marketing ideas. Ian put this up on Product Hunt, which is, I'm assuming, how you found out about us.
Correct.
Which was our first actual, like, kind of, let's show this to the world rather than let's text this to our friends, or like put it on Instagram or whatever. So thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ben. And then thank you, Stephen, for like reaching out to Ben, because I wouldn't have known to do that. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, like, the more users, the better. I think our foundation is there. The base is there. It kind of drives itself right now. So it's improving on this foundation.
And for me, kind of, the whole recommendation feature that Challenger's talking about kind of ties into the whole idea of, creating those organic recommendations to the user, not something written by an algorithm, something that, one user can share with another user that, they may think the other user will like, and I think that's a cool feature and a way to, build interactivity there. Another thing that we're kind of toying with is the idea of sharing, whether it be, your Instagram story or something that helps drive more engagement and virality of the product as a way to link back to Krate and other people to see the reviews and that sort of stuff. And I think those are two key features that are going to help us grow. We just recently released a new portion of the app called our Discovery tab or Discovery panel. I think about a month or so ago now, where we give recommendations on users to follow that are mutual friends of yours, so you can, it helps you find people that may have similar interests to you in different types of music. We created sort of this global feed for Krate where you can find any recommendation from any user on Krate. We query all Krates written basically, and whole global feed of that. So just generating more ways for people to find, albums they may enjoy.
I like that very much. And the idea of sharing an album that means something to you, it may be a bygone generation that, fell in love with albums versus songs. But for me, album is the centering sort of force for music. And I do think that is something that resonates a lot, both with what I would think as our generation of people, but also all generations of people looking at an intentionally created work. So even folks like Taylor Swift built albums this past year rather than singles, right? There was real intentionality around constructing this as an album. It's a complete thought. And even Bo Burnham's recent documentary that on Netflix, right? It's yeah. So he spent an entire year plus building a piece of work that requires people to comment on it almost, right? To share it but it's not just sharing one of the songs inside of it. You don't get the same feeling as you would having that full experience. I feel like there is something that you are doing here where you're gifting what you're talking about, gifting an album, or this means something to me. I hope that it means something to you as well. So is that how you see it?
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what we're going for here. Just, that personal, bringing recommendations back to the user, not like some huge website like Pitchfork or something that, lists their top 10 albums of the year.
Look, I feel bad. Like I will read Pitchfork. I will read like the Rolling Stones. Like I don't want to give those individuals and like what they're doing less credibility. All I'm saying is like I also love it when a friend of mine gives me like a cassette tape and just be like, "Yo, listen to this demo." That would have never been touched by like anyone with a 10-foot pole, but I got it because my friend gave it to me and told me to listen to it. I think the album is such like an important piece of is such an important art form in itself. And like, it's really difficult to quantify. And like, everyone did it for different reasons. Some were made by music executives, some were made in some kid's basement, and that's why I feel like that's why we're talking about it today and for the rest of eternity, right? Because it's like you can talk about it forever. There's so many different nuances to like why this was made or how it was made or who made it or like what it sounds like or what it means to you. It's fun. It's just like a fun human experience. Like what else would you rather do? Like this is interesting. I'd much rather do this than like my taxes or something,
Yeah, music or taxes. I feel like there's not a real competition there. So music, though, is created by people, right? By bands, those kinds of things. Have you looked at really sort of investing in, doing lunches with bands or looking at ways in which you could get further integrated into the DIY culture of those bands or artists?
Well, I was just going to say, it is something that I think we want to do next is starting to reach out to artists and bands and figuring out a way we can collaborate outside of Krate, with people that have their music reviewed on the app.
For example, like this one band, Smirk, actually like went out of their way to like create this whole for one of their performances. They created their own custom like Krate shirts and background banners and stuff like that. And like for their album release or something, they like had this whole set where they said, go review our album on Krate. One of my friends' bands had they released their album and they gave away some prize to random Krate review or something like that. It's just different ways for people to, these bands and stuff, to interact with Krate. But I think another way for us to continue to do that is keep building on the idea of sharing and giving it easy ways for people to, explore Krate.
So let's talk about sharing a little bit more broadly, sort of in two different ways. So one question I have is, obviously you've built everything on the Spotify API, right? But they are not the only game in town when it comes to music. Right. I'm an Apple Music subscriber. I have the free version of Spotify. There are many other services and things like that. Have you looked at ways of integrating other music services or other ways of sharing versus just sort of the Spotify link and things like that?
I would love to put every music service on there. The reason why it's Spotify, it was the most user friendly at the time and well documented. But I completely agree. Like half of my friends are Apple Music users, and they won't touch the thing. They won't touch it. Like. But we actually have it now where you don't need a Spotify account to like look on. Initially, I programmed it, like I wired it together poorly in my head, and like made you log into Spotify before you got into Krate, but now we do it the other way around, which was like, nice insight from Steven. But yeah, we'd love to use different music libraries. We looked into doing it. It's kind of interesting because you have to link the same album from different services, and depending on how they track them, like you can't necessarily just track them by like their album title or like artist name, like internal IDs that you have to kind of match up and stuff.
Have you looked at Odesly at all, or SongLink, the service that maps to multiple music services?
I'm writing that down right now.
So I think they're still called Odesly, but SongLink is the name of the links that they actually give out. ODESLI. Where you put in a link from one service and then it gives you the links to all of the various services that you're using. Yeah, and so I use that a lot when I don't know what service like a person is using, right? Because I don't want to presume that they just have Apple Music and then I send them a link and they can't use it, right? Like they're not going to open it up in Apple Music, convert it, like figure out what it is, so that has been valuable for me.
That's a really good idea. I like this like service that they created there.
The other thing, I don't know how closely you were following the WWDC announcements, but one of the key features of iOS and iPadOS 15 is this concept of SharePlay, where they allow you to have a shared experience. So you're on a video call with FaceTime, right? But you can have a shared screen between you, a shared piece of music, a shared movie, right? That you're watching together, and anybody can pause it and fast forward at the same time. And it's an API that allows you to have that experience. What kinds of shared experiences? Obviously, that's a technology that is still very much in its infancy and everything like that. But what kind of shared experiences would you want people to have together talking about music or sharing music? If you could just pie in the sky, like what would you build, or what kinds of ideas does that spark for you?
A listening party. Like that's the best. Like everyone wants that. Like you can listen to this together at home, but you're not allowed to press stop. You just have to listen to it.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have like almost like a group chat with like a DJ in it. Like, I could DJ, or Steven or Sean could DJ, and like you don't know what to listen to. Maybe you pop in and Sean's playing something and I just listen to what Sean's playing, That, I don't know. That could be cool.
Yeah.
Did you all rate it on Krate at one time?
I keep getting reminded of, so my daughter, my oldest, is almost 15, and she loves introducing music to me. This is something we always introduced music to her, when she was younger. And then when she started getting into music, she was like, no, you have to hear this. You have to hear this. But she has this internal metric where she has to ask everyone scale of 1 to 10, right? Scale of 1 to 10. How good is the song? And And so like we have this internal dialogue between the two of us talking about, oh, this is a 7. Well, what's that last song? That last song was a 7.5. And so when you have that kind of a conversation about like what is it about the song and finding new ways of discussing the song, do you feel like there is a Krate vernacular or a way of discussing music that has been created as a result of Krate, or is it just using the same kinds of ways of talking about music that happen elsewhere online?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I'd like to say that hopefully over time there is a Krate vernacular and like a style in which people talk about music on Krate in this way.
I've heard people in real life, like in friends groups and stuff, say, they listen to this new album, they're just like, now I got to go Krate it. Like it's kind of cool. It's like the idea of a review now is like going to Krate it.
There were some new releases on Friday, and people were like, "We got to hit Krate, see what people are saying on Krate."
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see the share link that is sort of ubiquitous at the bottom of every album or something like that. Just have a Krate button where like Krate this album, something like that would be truly wonderful to be able to just see whenever I'm looking at an MP3 blog or something like that. Krate this. That to me could be really neat. Can we do a couple of rapid fire questions and just get some thoughts out there about the Apple ecosystem as well as like apps that you use and that because ultimately the Apple Hunter is very much focused on like other things, right? Not just the one app. Tell me what is your everyday carry device? What are you using to build Krate?
So I don't use any Apple devices. I have
That's hilarious.
And I also have no social media. So like but I have a Google Pixel 4a and a MSI Dragon laptop.
I love it. That's fantastic. Ian, what do you got?
I got an iPhone SE, MacBook Pro. I hate to say it, I'm on Instagram all the time. I like Letterboxd for movies. I'm always looking at music gear, so Reverb. There's an app I use at work for tasting coffee. I'm in the coffee business called Cropster Cup. You basically set up a tasting and you write all your tasting notes and you score each coffee. Another way in which I score and review things.
Brilliant. Steven, what do you got?
For me, I got an iPhone 12.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little iPhone 12. I got a MacBook Pro going with the new little touch bar thing. I guess it's not so new now, but got that guy. I really love Strava. Strava's probably my favorite app. I do a lot of cycling and running and pretty active guy. So love that. Also, I can't go anywhere without these headphones. Sony.
Are those the Sonys? Yeah.
Yeah, Sony noise canceling headphones.
I actually have a crazy thing to talk about Apple.
Let's do it.
So I have this Korg Mono Tribe, which is a synthesizer. It's like an old synthesizer. And in order to do a firmware update on it, you plug it in to your computer and you play a wave file. And it's dialed tones, like so I tried it on my computer for like 2 hours on my MSI, like through Windows 10, through Audacity, through Windows Movie Player, whatever. Would not work. I used my sister's MacBook Pro, same wave file through iTunes, worked immediately. I don't know why, but it was like really bizarre. Anyways,
you will be converted yet. I have a feeling. All right, a couple of other quick questions. What advice do you have for other app developers or other users of Apple's platforms? Like what kinds of advice do you have for those who are trying to create something new as you have done?
The App Store is kind of a pain to get through. So give yourself plenty of ample time to go through them. They're fair. I'm not going to say they're not fair. They're just a pain, especially if you're creating an app where users are generating content, because they just need to protect their brand. Like, it's all understandable, but they are a pain, and you're not going to get through in 24 hours. They're going to tell you forgot to add the feature. You need people to be able to flag content, and it's like, well, I did do that. It's on this screen here, and they'll be like, well, you have to do it in this other. It's like it's difficult.
There are some hoops to jump through, sure,
but just give yourself time to do that is my advice. Because if you have a launch date and like a party for everyone to go to for this, but and you have this deadline to get this done, and you don't want to rely on this nice person in the Apple headquarters, like deciding the fate of your app. So just give yourself time.
When approaching any startup, including Krate, is try to create an environment for learning. That's going back to kind of the lean startup method that I kind of use in a lot of my practices when I create apps. And that's, keeping that customer in mind and kind of what they want. Start small. Problem's always huge, but break it down as much as you can and get something out the door as quick as possible and kind of learn a lot of the successes and failures that have there and grow it from there. Give the people what they want.
Ian, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would just say prepare for, bugs and obstacles. And I think it went a long way for us to, we were just answering emails one by one. If people had any questions or problems, no question, I don't think we left any unanswered questions, with new users. And I think that went a long way with, people being psyched on the app. And, you're kind of like doing a small business, and, you want to make sure that people have a good experience. And
last question before we do our closing. What is the nerdiest thing that you have ever done? Could be music nerdery or could be technologically nerdy. What is the nerdiest thing you have ever done? Yeah,
for me, I'd say one of them is be part of creating a mobile app, and then for work, like I said, I work in coffee. I'm a coffee roaster, and I've read books on coffee roasting and how to be a better coffee roaster. And I would say that that's pretty nerdy.
Yeah, you definitely get some points for that one.
For sure, yeah.
I'm a huge nerd, so like everything I do is pretty nerdy. But probably the most recent thing is I've gotten really into blockchain and creating blockchain apps. So like recently created like an NFT platform with one of my other things that got started up called Argon, and that's been super fun. Spent a month straight in my room just learning all about creating blockchain technologies and that sort of stuff. Got our own token and everything, so that's been super fun.
All right, Sean.
Yeah, and a few years ago, Tile, the little Tile things, and then Apple came out with the Apple Tag. I think was that recently. Yeah, the tag. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So I was experimenting with these like little smart beacons because like I had this idea. With tiles, you have to go look for stuff, but I kind of thought of it in reverse, where it's like, oh, this inanimate object wants to look for you. So it's like this book you don't read, like you put one of those in, and every time you walk by, your phone will be like, read this, like, or like brush your teeth, like put it on your toothbrush or something like that. So I bought these development kits from Nordic Semiconductors and was like messing with them, I guess.
I love that.
Yeah,
it's very cool. Your inanimate objects around your house are talking to you
rather than you're like trying to reach out to them. I don't know. Well, essentially, my partner, she always forgets her lunch in the fridge, and if only like before work, and she'll make this elaborate lunch, but then you have 1 second to grab your lunch before you head out the door, or else you're not getting it. You're not going to eat this nice lunch you put. So I was like thinking of a solution for that. I never finished it, but so it goes.
Yeah, there are lots of unfinished geeky things that we do all of the time. So, all right. So, where can people find you online? How do you want people to hop on the Krate bandwagon? And then if anybody has feedback for you, how should they give you feedback?
So our CEO, Chris, he runs our Twitter account. So the handle is Krate_app, APP, with Krate with a K. And yeah, it's pretty lively and fun, and it's like lighthearted. It's not corporate at all. So it's a fun way to engage with us outside of the app. Obviously, we're in the Android and Apple stores, or the Google Play and Apple stores. Our email address is krate with a K .application@gmail.com.
What's your Krate handle?
Yeah, I'm Nuclear Affairs.
Nuclear Affairs.
Yeah.
Spelled like you would think.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing. There's a lot of untaken user handles right now, so you can have whatever you want. It's early, so
yeah. So to be clear, you do have social media, but only as it relates to music.
Yeah, I guess I have Krate, and then I use YouTube a lot.
My handle is Reality Master, and you can find me there on Krate.
All right, Steven, you get the last word.
My Krate name is @Steven, just like my name, with a V, and that's kind of all I got.
Well, that works. That works for me. All right. Well, thanks so much for taking the time today for the interview. I really appreciate it. Well, I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks.